Hello and welcome. My name is Hannah. Let's sketch some faces. I've been working on the 100 Heads challenge for the past couple months now. So far, I have done charcoal, alcohol markers, and oil pastels. Today, I'm working on paint markers if you couldn't guess. And I didn't mention, but I am trying to do each set of 5 in a different medium. So that's the goal that I have for this challenge. Once I finished the oil pastel one, I had no idea, no plans for what I was going to do next. So when Ohuhu reached out to me and said, hey, we have new acrylic paint markers, will you test them out? I said, I have the perfect challenge for this video. Yes, I will do it. So these markers were sent to me from Ohuhu, and I'm testing them out on this video. In exchange, they are giving you guys 10% off of your order at checkout if you use the code HANNAH123. I have a link in the description of this video to take you straight there, or you can, Google it, get there on your own somehow, I guess. But I'll tell you, I'm so excited to try these out, and we do make some really cool stuff. So the first thing that I'm doing is sketching out the faces, and I actually found myself spending more time doing this than I have in the past, which was different. Usually I try to rush this as much as I can to get to the fun part, coloring it. But I actually was finding this part really cathartic, which is very unusual for me, to say the least. I also was choosing faces that were difficult for me. I had 2 of them that were going to be really easy. Like the 2 left ones I knew were the easiest ones because they were straight. And I really wanted to challenge myself with the last 3 with heads that were tilted. Tilting heads is like my kryptonite. I can't do it. It warps my brain. But if I don't do it, I'm never gonna get better at it. And honestly, it's getting the faces down that's the hardest part. Everything else is gonna be easier. Hopefully. Now, I haven't used paint markers in a long time, and I certainly don't use them regularly, so whenever I do use them, it's always like a learning curve. And I will say that markers with a button on the top to pump your own paint into the nib, that's new for me. And I ended up really liking that feature, and I'll explain why in a second, but at first, I was getting frustrated at it until I learned that I overpumped them, so paint was just flowing, and you'll see it. I struggle with it for the first half of this face until I realize, oh, this is what's going on, it's because I overpumped them. And this problem doesn't continue throughout the whole spread. It's really only at the beginning once I get that paint situation, figured out. But what I ended up doing that was really helpful was I got an index card, and every time that I took out a new color, I would use the color on the index card first to get rid of any excess paint that was accumulating in the nib because of my own error, and then it would work as expected. I went a little bit different with my references that I picked today, and one thing that I wanted was to try an older person who had wrinkles, and this is the one. I also really wanted to find a child, but ethically I can't think that it's okay, specifically to put a kid's face on the internet. And that's simply just my own feelings. I'm not sure what the laws are, but I'm not even gonna look because it feels wrong to me. So I gotta follow my gut. Yeah, I totally dropped the pen. But that's okay because the white works really well and I just whited it out. So that wasn't a problem, it was just annoying. Anyway, so back to this picture. I ended up using more conventional skin tones where the sun was shining, and then in the shadows is kind of where I was able to play a little bit with the colors and really just go crazy. This one turned out really, really cool, and I didn't know that it was turning out this cool until pretty much the end. I spent so much time wondering if I was choosing the right color or if the colors that I was choosing was going to be too off the wall or just take away from maybe you wouldn't even be able to see the full picture because of how weird the colors are. But I ended up finding out that it doesn't matter what color you're choosing. It just matters the value of the color. So the lightness or the darkness of the color. And if the value matches how dark it's supposed to be, everything is going to turn out fine. One thing that I always look for when I choose my references is the lighting, and this guy, he has the perfect lighting. It's very strong shadows and very clear definition of where his anatomy is, and that makes it really easy to color. But aside from that, I chose him because he had a perfect side profile, and I always need to practice that because I can never, I always need to practice where the eye goes on a side profile. And then everything else about him, I loved his hat, his glasses, his outfit with the suspenders, and his mustache. Generally, just everything about this was really enticing for me to want to draw. So I actually found that the way that I was coloring him up, I wasn't using the full potential of these markers. I was painting him based on the previous paint markers that I'm used to, which pretty much dry as soon as they touch the paper. So you don't have a lot of options as far as mixing or creating a gradient effect, or you have a very narrow window where you can do that effectively on your paper. But these markers, I figured, hey, these are so juicy, I'm going to use that to my advantage now. And I ended up creating a pile of paint, and then with a different color, I dipped it in that paint puddle, and then that allowed me to create some really cool gradients, and also allowed me to, if I needed to shift the color just a little bit in one direction, then I could do that really easily. It's always really cool to be able to see your own progress. And one thing specifically that I'm thinking about right now is I just recently tried to learn watercolor and it was really painful, but I did end up learning some stuff about watercolor, and I took some things that I learned from that and applied it here. So that was just exciting to see myself doing that without even, trying. Now, I'm not saying that this is anything like watercolor. It's totally not. But it's just cool that when you learn one thing, it carries over to certain other things that you're trying to learn also. So yeah, I know that it's hard to see your own progress sometimes, but when you do see it and it smacks you in the face, you're like, oh dang, okay, this is getting cool. So at this point in the drawing, I looked at it and I was thinking, wow, this looks so much cooler than I thought it was gonna look. How in the world am I gonna make the other 4 look as cool as this one does? But I'll tell you that all 5 of them turn out really cool in their own ways, and I struggle with something different in each one, which is, par for the course, I guess. I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to end his, portrait, but I decided to end it right at the suspender because I had some ideas that I might want to meld into the portrait next to him, but I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to do that yet, so I just kind of left it alone. But let's move on to this next guy. So one thing that I've been trying to pay attention to when I'm looking for references is making sure that all 5 people are different skin tones, and this is the darkest one today. Now, in my previous challenge, in my, the last 5 that I did, I didn't go dark enough with the darkest skin tone. So I tried to learn from that, and I made sure to not shy away from getting as dark as I needed to go from the get-go. And that was really helpful to stay in the appropriate tone the whole time. One thing that I learned with the oil pastel 5 that I did was that it's really helpful to not lose your place if you start with the facial feet, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. So I tried to start with his nose, and I was really excited about how the first portrait turned out that I kind of wanted to carry that over to him. So I started doing his nose very, very colorful, and that's not the right move for him. And I didn't realize that until kind of near the end, and you'll see I change up the nose several times to try to get it to fit, and I get it there, but it just takes a while. But I realized for him, the thing that I really, really wanted to capture for him was his expression. That's what drew me to his portrait in the first place, was he had such thick expression, and I wanted to capture that. And it really comes down to, in my opinion, it comes down to the muscles above the eyebrows. So that, like, I focus the most, well, I don't focus the most on it, but I made sure to get like the lighting the right way on the eyebrows once I get to that point, and then that really helps it to feel like him. Aside from the nose, everything else pretty much went really swimmingly. I decided to pretty much stay with a really small color palette for him and stick with the greens on the left side and the blues on the right side. And I think in doing that, it really helped to keep his skin tone as accurate as it needed to be and not like overdoing it and making it look clowny. And I mean, I say clown and look at his cheek. I fix it. I don't know. I think it's like when you walk through a doorway and you forget what you went into that room for. I think I went on a different tangent and then I completely didn't even see the cheek anymore. It was like it didn't exist. But after having ignored the nose for enough time to have learned that sticking with a simpler color palette for him was the right move, I forgot how I started the sentence. Jeez. Oh man. So basically what I'm trying to say is I went really, really colorful on his nose in the very beginning, and that I learned is not the right move for him. He needs a simpler color palette. So once I learned that by doing the rest of his face first, then I could go back to his nose and really, fix his nose and make it look more appropriate for him. And then everything else just kind of fell into place. I think of all 4 mediums that I've used so far, this one is definitely the most forgiving as far as like when you color outside the lines. You can just use the white paint marker and make it right again. And it looks totally normal. I mean, this is, of course, if you're going on white paper. If you're on a different color paper, I guess you're SOL. But it also is really forgiving when you're on the face too, because if you make a mistake on the face, you can just cover it up and nobody's the wiser. With oil pastels, if you cover it up, it kind of wants to blend into the color under it. See, look, I fix it. And I also was finding out that orange, like this color orange, mixing the orange and the brown is the perfect color. It was what he was missing. So I end up using this color and using this for kind of like accents here and there, and it's like the perfect finishing touch. So we're moving on to the third portrait, and I am so excited about this one. This was actually the very first portrait the very first reference that I found that I was like, yes, I need to do this. And I've actually found out something very interesting about myself and my preferences. I really, really enjoy drawing people who are sun-kissed by the sun. Like straight sun, what is that? Golden hour, I think is what it's called. It must be called that for a reason. Sorry, I have a dog, by the way. Anyway, so yeah, I really enjoy drawing people who are straight in sunlight, like setting sun, rising sun. I think that is like the perfect amount of, like it adds the perfect amount of yellow to the skin that makes the person look like they're kind of a part of the sun. That sounds so cheesy, but like that makes me feel whole inside, and it just makes me feel so excited to draw people who are in sunlight. Anyway, that was a tangent. So the other thing that I was really drawn to, there were a few different things that I was really drawn to with this portrait, and one of them was the very rosy cheeks. I was very excited to figure out how to do that in a way that looked good without looking really not good. So that was like my challenge with this one, was to try to get the cheeks to look really rosy without going overboard, but also not holding back so much where the cheeks don't look rosy anymore and there's not that same level of charm. At this point in the drawing, I was able to see that they were starting to look a lot older, and I thought that I did like a pretty decent job with the sketch phase, but I must not have because there were a couple problems that were coming to the surface, and one of them was that I think the face is just too tall. Like, definitely. I don't think, looking at it now, side by side with the reference, it's 100% too tall. And I think that that's why they're looking older than they are. The other problem was I wasn't getting this person is very smiley. Like, they're smiling through their whole face, and I couldn't achieve that amount of smile. I changed things a few times to try to get the lips to look better, and I think right now the lips are too low. And again, the problem is that the face is too tall. Like, if I had the proportions perfect from the get-go, I maybe wouldn't have this problem, but I do end up going and changing the lips to try to make them look more higher, like more smiley, and it helps a little bit, but I never get it perfect. And I think like part of me likes that it's not perfect because that gives me something to aim for next time. So I don't know, like it is what it is, and I'm a little bit happy about it, but also a little bit sad about it. I don't know if that makes sense. At this point, I was starting to feel like it was getting to be too much of the same color, so I wanted to go back out throughout the chin area and kind of introduce some different colors to the shadows. And while I switch gears and start working on the headpiece, I am thinking about how I want to, like, I have an idea for what I want to try with the chin area. So yeah, I try something a little bit different, and it works, but it's not that simple, and I need to really show you what I'm talking about, so I'll talk about it a little bit later. So in the meantime, I'm working on this headpiece, and you know how scared I am of working with fabric. I know that I can do it, but I get lost so easily in all of the wrinkles and folds and stuff. So I felt like this one would be like simple enough to be able to do it justice, but also like I was nervous the whole time. And something magical happened with these paint markers. As I was mixing the red and the black, somehow it just kind of like painted itself without me like knowing what was happening, which it was really cool. Like the way that it turns out, I feel like I can't take credit for it because it wasn't me. If that makes sense. So this is what I was talking about. I really wanted to try using a paintbrush on this. I wanted to be able to add like a very dusty reflection on the cheek, and I feel like it's perfect. Like this effect on the cheek is exactly what this needs. And then slowly I start working, like I get carried away with it and I just start doing it throughout the bottom half of the face. And the problem is that it started to feel like two different paintings. Like I really, really liked how the top half was turning out, that when I finished the bottom half in this very blendy, dusty effect, like it didn't match the top half. So I ended up spending so much time trying to go backwards and try to fix it to get back to matching the top half of the face. But my stubborn self was like, no, I have to be able to use the paintbrush like sparingly so that it works minimally. And every time that I would I would get the face to looking good again, and then I would be like, well, maybe if I just use a little bit of paintbrush here, and it just immediately went back to chaos. So I ended up having to just nix all of the paintbrush on this one so that it would all look like a uniform painting. And honestly, I feel like this portrait is one where I could just keep going forever and ever, but at some point I just needed to stop. Now, I started the next one thinking that my camera was rolling, and it wasn't, and that sucks. But I guess it happens, unfortunately. So basically I was using two different colors and kind of going back and forth between the two colors. This one I actually kept pretty minimal, and now that I'm looking back at it, I know exactly why I was going minimal on the smaller ones. So if you notice, the bottom 3 portraits are larger, which meant that the top 2 needed to be smaller, and I ended up having to squish them up at the top. And this is a smaller paper than I usually work on. It's a paper that Ohuhu sent, like they sent the markers and then they sent this sketchbook with it. And I wanted to try out the paper because I'm a paper fiend and I'm really interested in trying to figure out like the best paper that works for me. And I ended up really liking this one, but that's beside the point. As I was drawing the pictures, I knew that the top 2 were smaller than the bottom 3. Like, I'm not blind, but I was thinking, okay, I know that I like smaller pictures, so maybe like the fact that these 2 are really small, they will be like even better. Maybe like smaller the better. And I'm figuring out after these 2 that my preference is the bigger 3 ones. Like that to me, like my palm size is the best size for me. Anyway, so let's get back to this picture. I realized at this point that I was going more simple with the colors on the smaller ones, and it worked. So that's good to know that there's like a trick for it. This highlight in the hair is, I feel again like this wasn't me, and it just kind of magically looked really amazing. Also, it's so funny to me when they have no eyebrows. Anyway, so with her, I ended up going really simple, traditional skin tone on the face, and then with the shadows, I mainly stuck with like really soft green colors. And it's really cool the effect that happened because she's so small, and the paint tip can only really get so small. Like you can get kind of small, but not as small as this size needs. Well, for me, in my experience. But it's kind of cool to see like how the eyes turned out because of the size of the nib. Like her eyes turned out kind of watery and almost like baby doll-esque. Like I mean, you'll see it, how it turns out. And I think that's really cool. Like I didn't mean for it to look that cool, but it's nice that it turned out that way. Also, I think that she's famous. I was seeing a lot of her on Pinterest. So I asked my husband who she might be, and he thinks that she might be from Shameless, but I've never seen it, and I guess ultimately it doesn't really matter. At this point, I mean, it's kind of impossible to avoid famous people. They're pretty much everywhere, and they're a really reliable source of non-AI pictures. So yeah, so let's move on to this 5th and final portrait. Something about just the orangey skin tone is so pleasing to me, so I was really, really excited to do this, and at first it was coming together so easily until I realized that it was starting to look like stripes. And then I kind of got really in my head about it, and I ended up changing the first part of the face that I did. Like, it looks good, and I wish that I didn't get in my head about it, because I think when I ended up going back and fixing it, like it ended up looking exactly the same as when I started. So, I mean, I could have saved so much time in just letting it be. I think that this one turns out to be the one that I'm the most proud of on this whole spread because of the angle of the face. Like, this one was the one that was the most challenging for me, because looking upwards at an angle at a face is like mind-boggling to me. And like I look at people that way all the time. I'm 5 foot, I'm very short, so I am always looking at people's noses, and like you would think that I would be used to it in order to be able to draw it easily, but for some reason it was really, really hard. I was also starting to like everything was kind of coming together so easily with this one until I got to this mouth, and I remember feeling like something was wrong. And looking at it now, like I can see that the bottom lip is facing us when it should be facing sideways. And in my memory, I went back and fixed it, but I don't think that I do. So he kind of Like, it looks like he might have gotten punched in the face and he has a fat lip, but that's just how it's gonna be, and I guess we're gonna have to be fine with that. So now that I'm watching this as a viewer, I keep looking back over at the red hooded person and seeing that bright green coming out of the mouth, and it looks like they just bit like a radioactive blooded person, and it's a little bit distracting, and maybe I should have fixed it, but again, I don't. I leave it how it is. I remember saying that was one where I just kind of had to stop, where I was going to keep working on it forever, and it's kind of funny because maybe I should have worked on it for like another 2 minutes. But I think it's honestly kind of funny, and so I'm kind of happy that I left it so that it gives me something to, chuckle about. But going back to this picture, I think it's always so cool to add in the eyes because that's the soul, right? And when you add in the eyes, it seems like it's like everything that you've been working towards is kind of starting to fit into place, and it's starting to make a little bit more sense. So every time that I got to the eyes on a portrait, I took it slow and I kind of like felt it a little bit more, because I feel like if I can get the eyes to have the same feeling as the portrait does, then you can kind of get away with some of the other features being a little bit less perfect. And that's honestly something that I've been noticing is happening to me. So I'm doing the second 100 Heads challenge, and I've been working really hard on getting them to look really good from the start. Like, I'm putting more effort into the sketch phase so that it looks more like the person. But as I'm going along this challenge, I'm realizing that the thing that is capturing me more than perfection is trying to get the emotion of the person through. Anyway, so back to this portrait. The face is almost done, and I'm about to add in the hair, and the hair is another thing that puts the whole thing together, and it feels like such an easy. What I just realized is I don't think I've done a single blonde person. I should probably start making that part of the criteria. So back when I was doing the sketches, I knew that there were going to be 3 that were bigger and then 2 that were smaller, and I put the smaller 2 kind of in that, where they turned out. You can see it with your eyes. And I didn't know that they look kind of like horns, or at least the top left guy looks like a horn for the middle guy, and that's unfortunate. Anyway, so as I move on to the neck of this guy, I decided to kind of go, I switched directions a few times of how I wanted to go about doing his neck, and the way that it turns out really cool, and it looks a little bit like cell shaded, and I wish that I knew that I was doing that so that I could replicate it in the future. That's one thing that my husband is obsessed with, is cell shaded things. So he tells me that he wants me to cell shade his car, and I'm like, that is a big commitment. I'm not gonna do that. But then there's also this part of me that's like, maybe I will do that. So maybe someday in the future, if you see a cell shaded truck going down the, I did 2 16s, and then I got to the last one. I was like, wait, this is not 19, this is 20. And then I had to go back and white out the numbers, do them the right way. I did them right after the other, so I don't know, my brain was off. Anyway, so this is how the spread turned out. I think it's really cool how all of them have a different style to them. And if this is something that is interesting to you and you want to test out these paint markers, don't forget to use my code Hannah123 at checkout on Ohuhu's website. And I will see you in the next one. Toodaloo.